You are tuning in to the You Are Loved podcast, where we hope to bring love and kindness to the world.
Welcome to another You Are Loved podcast. And today I have my co-host on the line with us, Miss Amy Adams. So excited to have you, Amy, on the
Finally.
So now you get to see what her face looks like outside of the cartoon. So,
Yeah.
And then we have an amazing guest today, Jennifer Curry Prasad. Welcome, Jennifer. So happy to have you on.
Thank you.
Jennifer is a recovering banker, which I just thought that was hilarious when I read that. Holistic health practitioner, hair whisperer, mindset success coach, author of I Am Light and The Dreamcatcher, mother to an angel son and a sassy, sweet firecracker princess. When her teenage son suddenly became ill and passed away, Jennifer's world shattered into a million pieces. This trauma led her to walk away from a very successful corporate banking career that she spent 23 years building. She started to build a business more aligned with her soul and in a way that helps bring change to people's lives every day. She's fully convinced that her son carefully nudged her onto this path, one baby step at a time. From the other side to continue their work together. Nico in spirit and Jennifer here on the ground, shifting perception around physical death, lighting the path towards healing and recovering. Joy while navigating our grieving journeys. She now spends her days creating grief support tools, comforting as many people who are grieving as possible, sharing her and Nico's story, building her magical empire, building a community for her business partners. Based on mindset and energy practices for confidence, building so that people she leads can build their empires and experience success. You can find Jennifer traveling the world, living in the present, quoting YOLTLO, hair whispering, lighting the path to support and show others joy as possible alongside grief, and gilding others to build a more freedom-based lifestyle, resulting in more choices to experience their brightest lives.
I love it. I've never heard it read out loud. I'm like, wow.
And then I kept it kept popping up and I was like, oh my gosh. And then I was like, oh, praise God that it popped back as just pretty much where I left off. So that's where my pauses happened a couple times. But Jennifer, it's so great to have you. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And I know we spoke a little bit on the phone, and Amy she knows your story. She kept sharing a little bit with me about, what happened. So can you just give a little bit of your background, like with your son, and then your transition story from all of that after
You
he
mean like
went on?
starting from like when he got diagnosed or just like?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
good. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So Nico was a pretty, fairly healthy kid. There was some things that I did make decisions around that I wish I hadn't, but when you know better, you do better. And so, basically what happened is we were at a family reunion, and he went on one of those banana boat rides with all his cousins. And when he came back out of the water, he had bruises like everywhere that the water touched him. And I was like, whoa, like, is that from basketball, or did like that just happen right now? Because he was a competitive basketball player. He played for school. He lived, like, breathed, slept basketball. He was always on the court. So like that's what he did, and taught like from every weekend all day long, and like school, right after school he came home and he was on that court until like 9 o'clock at night. Like he loved basketball. So I didn't know, like, is that happening on the court? Like, did that just happen? And he was like, no, Mom, like that just happened while I was on the water. So I was like, I knew immediately, like, okay, something's not right. So I took him to his pediatrician like 2 days later, as soon as we got back home. And by then all the bruising was gone. So his doctor was like, he looks incredible. Like, get out of here. Like, he's like the healthiest 16-year-old I've ever seen. Because he just examined him and looked at him and was like, I mean, the kid was all muscle, like, just, he looked so healthy. It was like, that's why it's like such a bizarre thing. But he goes, I'm going to do blood work just because we haven't done it on him in a while, but go ahead and leave. Go ahead and get out of here. I'm sure it's fine. Well, like 10 minutes later, they were calling me to rush back. Like, oh, this can't be right. We want to redo the blood again. And I was like, and he goes, I'm sure it's like a mistake. It's so off that I think something went wrong with the lab. So we turn around, we go back, they redraw the blood, they do it again. And the doctor is just like, you got to go to the emergency room, like right now. And I was like, what? And he just said, he has 10,000 platelets and he's supposed to have like hundreds of thousands. He goes, I don't even know how he's standing here presenting like this healthy young kid. And so we went right down to Joe DiMaggio. And of course, while I was there, all these things were going through my head because my uncle passed away from leukemia very young, and that was his first symptom. So I am like in the chair. One of my best friends is like a PQ nurse there, and I'm like texting her, like, are you here? And she's like, yeah, what's going on? I said, I just brought Nico in. They're doing some testing. And I'm very holistic. So in my brain, I was like checking my bank accounts, like, how much money do I have? Like, if they come back and say this is leukemia, like, we're out of here. We're going to Mexico. Like, you know what I mean? I was like already like had this going down in my head. Like, what? Like, I'm not putting him through what my uncle went through. So it was such a relief when one of my, she texted me and she's like, they don't think it's leukemia. It's this other, the doctor really thinks it's this like blood disorder. So the doctor comes in, the hematologist, and he goes, I think it's ITP. And I was like, well, what's that? And he goes, well, it's idiopathic, which means they have no idea. But it's basically, they call it an autoimmune disorder where your own body is attacking its own platelets. So the bone marrow is kind of just spitting the platelets out as babies as fast as it can, because before they can even get to adults, the body is just like destroying them. Oh, so this is what was, this was what was going on. And I was like, well, like, why? Like, what do you mean? And they were like, well, we don't know. It just like happens, which, I have my own theories about all those things. But, so he said, listen, I really think if we keep him overnight, we do this IIG treatment, I feel like this will be okay. And so I was really reluctant to do it, but I went ahead and said, okay, they admitted him. We stayed overnight. It's like, because they have to monitor you like every 10 minutes to make sure you're not rejecting anything or going into anaphylactic shock or like all these kinds of side effects from this treatment. But in theory, it's supposed to overwhelm your immune system and reset it. So as the night went through, as we got to the morning, his platelet count rose and rose and rose and rose. By the time they did their rounds and they checked him in the morning, he was back up where he was supposed to be. So the doctor was like, I feel like we're gonna I think we're good. Maybe he had a virus, maybe it was this, maybe it was that. Something just threw him off. So of course we then continued our care with the hematologist to be checked again, like a follow-up in 2 weeks. And in those 2 weeks, which he acted fine, and we went for a blood draw and it was back down to 10,000. So the hematologist was very comfortable, even though like his platelet count was so low, the way he was presenting. And he wasn't having like at that point, no nothing, like no nosebleeds, no anything. Like he felt completely normal other than the bruising that happened. So he said, I'm okay with just, watching him. So then we would go for a few more blood draws, always the same, outcome. There was, he was very adamant and okay with us to continue watching him. And so we had gone to an appointment and it was like, okay, like this nothing's, this isn't getting better on its own. Like, I think we need to do another one of those IIG treatments. And we had just agreed to do that treatment. And, he went to school. He came home. He was playing basketball, came in 9 o'clock, cooked his favorite dinner, bouncing the ball all over the house. He just said his arm felt weird. And I was like, well, did someone hit you out there? Like, everyone knew because of the blood disorder not to hit him anymore, like not to hit him hard or like if he fell or he hit something hard, they're got to come get me. He couldn't play at school anymore competitively, which he was really bummed about that. But he was that kid at school now, like, oh my gosh, he's bleeding, like call his mom right now. So he went to bed and we didn't think anything of it. And he, woke me up in the middle of the night and was just like, I don't feel that good. Can I stay home from school? And I was like, of course, yes, just like go back to bed. And I had to go to work. And his older brother was home with him. And I was like, if anything changes, like call me immediately. And they called me like about noon at work and said like he feels numb now, like his arm feels numb, like his body feels numb. And that's when like I was like, oh my god, like he's having a stroke in my mind. But like you don't think of a 16-year-old having a stroke.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't even. But like as soon as you tell me numbness,
Which would make sense
tingleness,
with like blood loss and stuff like
right,
that. Yeah.
right. I'm like, I was like, what? And so they put him in the car right away. I flew from my job to meet them there. And, basically when I got there, like he couldn't even get out of the car. Like he couldn't even move the left side of his body. So it was like a huge stroke alert. It was just hundreds of medical personnel. They were throwing the kitchen sink at him. And this went on for about 13 hours. And then, they wanted to rush him into emergency surgery. I wasn't thrilled about it. I definitely got into a few altercations with the doctors while I was there. Reluctantly, I finally agreed because everybody, was saying, you need to go ahead and let them do this. And he went into surgery and he came out of surgery and the doctor said he did great. And walked him to his room and started to set him up for whatever, like that, like a catheter, whatever needs to be in him while they're monitoring him. And within those few minutes, like just his vitals went crazy. And then the doctor came, everyone went running down the hall to his room. And the doctor came out and was like, I don't think he's going to wake up. And I was like, what? And he's like, I don't think he's going to wake up. I'm like, you just made me take him into that surgery. What do you mean he's not going to wake up? And he was like, I think his brain is swelling into his brainstem. And this is the same doctor that I like went a few rounds with. So at that point, I'm like, just get the fuck out of my face.
Yeah.
Like, just get out of here. But yeah, that's ultimately what happened is that his brain swelled and, they declared him brain dead and had to remove him from life support 3 days later.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. Like there's just like no preparation for that, obviously. That's just
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. It's like there's things now that when I think back, it's like his soul knew, like his higher self knew and my higher self knew. There would be things that he would say to me that at the time I would be like, why would you say that? But now looking back, I'm like there was a time where he was like, oh, I don't think I'm gonna have enough time. I don't think I'm gonna have enough time, Mom. It was like something you wanted to do, and I was like, oh my gosh, like we'll just sign you up to do that, when you're feeling better. And he was just like, and this just like the voice, just the way he looked, like, oh, I
Yeah.
don't think I'm gonna have time. I don't think I'm gonna have time. And I was like, what? Why would you say that? But it's
Yeah.
like at the time, like I knew and he knew, but we were like, I was like, So
Yeah.
yeah, it's I do really think that like, and I've talked to a lot of people since it's happened, and they say similar things where there's like a point leading up close to near where just something was said or it's like it's coming.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. That's crazy. And so obviously, like right after that, there was a lot of pieces to pick up, and there's different levels of grief. So, like anger and denial and all of that. So, do you feel like you went through like all of that, all those levels, or?
Oh yeah, I definitely rode the roller coaster. I went on the merry-go-round. I went on the roller coaster. I went on all of those things. I think that though, as a child, and I don't remember if I told you about like this. I just have always been very connected to spirit,
Yeah.
and I didn't want to be the weird kid growing up, and so I just kind of bottled a lot of things up and like don't say that. People will think you're crazy. Just be quiet.
Yeah.
And so, when that happened, it was like when he was put on life support, it was almost as if like his umbilical cord was reattached to me. And it was just a knowing of like, okay, I need to do this, I need to do that. Like it was, I had like in my mindset was like, you know, because I had a shaman there, and the shaman was helping me also like navigate this because I wanted to make sure I was honoring him. That was the most important thing to me. And during that time, it was like he had asked, like, can I stay? And it was almost like he was at his friend's house, you know, like obviously he didn't ask me physically. It was like through the shaman and through the, you know, the work that we were doing in spirit with him. It was like, Mom, can I stay? Just like, and I was like, yes, of course. Like, you know, and I think back, I'm like, why didn't I tell him, no, get your ass home? Like, no, you can't stay. But it was like this selfless, like, yeah, like, why would it make you come back here?
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, of course you can stay. And I was getting, you know, like answers from him and things like that through the shaman. Cause you know, now I've done so much work and so much of a practice that I can get my own answers, but I didn't trust myself after I had made that decision to take him into surgery, and because I knew deep down in my soul, like, don't let them take him into surgery.
Yeah.
But I was being so pressured and
Of
bullied and
course. Yeah.
pushed into a corner and yelled in my
Yeah.
face, and I was afraid like they were gonna be like bar her, like they weren't gonna they were gonna bar me from making decisions.
It's hard when you're
Yeah,
dealing with
so
the medical community and stuff.
yeah,
It's
it was
very
like
hard.
walking on eggshells, like, oh, don't get kicked out of this hospital because then you'll have no access to him. So
Well, then you'd end up getting arrested because you'd be fighting to get back in. So
well, yeah, right.
yeah.
So it was just like I was trying to toe the line, but I had also made the decision, well, if this is his time to to transition, I'm gonna make it the most like beautiful transition possible. So I mean, I had just, you name it, I had there. Every energy practitioner I knew was in the room. Just our shaman, my rabbit, like I had everybody there. Like we were all gonna make this like the most beautiful transition possible. So at that time is like kind of when I got my
She may have gotten a phone call.
Okay, I just want to make sure it wasn't just me. Jennifer, we lost you for a second. You went black. Hold on one second. Let me. Oh, it's buffering to come back on.
That happened to me earlier.
Okay. All right. Okay, everyone. Well, hope come back on because I think feel like we were getting to the good part of her story and really just having an opportunity to understand, because a lot of times people, so we'll go through like the 5 levels of grief. You have denial. So when it's first happening, you have anger, you have bargaining, where it's just like, okay, we're going to bargain with God. And then there is the depression. So where this is where you get really into like a deep depression where you just feel like you can't even get out of bed. You're just constantly sad. You don't want to leave your house. And a lot of times there's people that get stuck in both anger and depression. Okay. And then the last part of it is acceptance. So acceptance, I think, is where Jennifer's at now, where she has had the opportunity to be able to heal and not move on from her son, but be able to incorporate him in her life in a different way, continue to love him, and for him to continue to be an inspiration in her life. So, Amy, does she look like she's back on your side or no?
No.
Okay. All right.
It was doing something and then nothing.
Yeah. So those are some of the areas. And so I'm curious to know, when she hops back on, is how she was able to get out of the anger and depression stage and get into the acceptance. So I know that she said she did a lot of work on herself. One of them is through a shaman, but I'm curious to know about some of the other stuff as well. So a lot of times people go see therapy and then go through and talk about it, so this way they can talk about the traumas. So Amy, like when you lost your nephew, how did you end up working through some of that to getting to where you're at today? Obviously you still get sad
I'm still
and
going through it.
depressed, but I don't know. Are you still angry, or have you kind of moved past that? Or
I have times when I'm angry. I'm still I'm a year in, so it's there's a lot of anger, but I'm not as angry as I was. There's a lot of like sadness still. There's a lot of hurt. There's a lot of questions because, and then there's a lot because of my family dynamic. There's a lot of like moments that I don't get to experience because I'm not included in them, I guess.
yeah,
So, that part of it is like I kind of have to go through it alone,
yeah,
so that makes it hard, and that makes like the hurt and the anger kind of hang out for a little bit.
yeah,
I mean, I'm still going through it, and I still not as angry as I was, and that anger also stems from other stuff too. So,
yeah,
but it all circled around the loss and the grief. And
yeah.
Jen's back.
So, hi, Jen.
Sorry, I
So,
don't know what happened. I kind of lost you guys and I couldn't hear you.
yeah, no problem.
Okay.
So, so you were just talking about with the shaman. That was like the last thing that we heard. So, and so I went through like the 5 stages of grief and all that. And Amy was just sharing a little bit of her story with her loss of her nephew. And so one of the things I was going to say, Amy, is like it's like you have this sense of, I'm sure, because I see it, like this sense of like loneliness and this separation from parts of your family, and it's like no one can really understand this deep uh agony that you have in the pit of your stomach and your soul. As much as like you try to explain that, it's like they don't live that with you. Everyone's dealing with their own stuff,
Right.
um and that just sucks, and I'm sorry to you for that, and I'm sorry that um some people just aren't so nice and have just like lasted in the anger section.
Right.
So um so Jennifer, one of the things I wanted to ask you is like you've been able to, I felt like through like the 5 stages, you've been able to come down to like the acceptance stage, not saying that you accept his death and are happy with that or anything like that, but it's like you've come to a place, at least now, of being okay and some peace. Like what did you have to do to get through like the anger and depression and all that stuff? Like what was some of the work that you had to do to get to become back being emotionally healthy again?
Yeah. And I'm really careful with like speaking in like 5 stages of grief or 5 stages of anything because
Yeah.
everyone's journey is so unique and
Yeah.
you don't ever know how much someone loves someone, so everyone's grief is going to be related to how deep that love and connection was. So some people will say like, oh my god, like I lost a child. Well, if you loved your parent or whoever and you were that close with them, it can be just as painful for you. So I try to like really be mindful. I've learned a lot with like the stuff that all the tools I've gathered, with like not negating it to like, oh, there's 5 stages, because you could feel all of those stages at all different times. It's
Yeah.
not linear. It's very
It's
layered.
not like, okay, I'm done with anger now. I'm going to move
Yeah,
into
I'm
bullying
gonna move on
and
to the next
depression.
one. Check.
Okay.
No, not gonna work like that. Good luck
It
with
doesn't.
that. So it's more like, just learning to navigate those waves, and those waves at first kind of like knock you down, knock you to a dark hole, and you're crawling your way out. To whereas I think as your perspective shifts and as your like understanding of where your loved one is, to me anyway, in my like in the way I feel about it, it's like when those waves hit me, they're just kind of, they don't knock me down and kick my butt like they used to,
Yeah.
because of the different perspective of where my son is and my connection to him and how much he's guiding me. And I know, and it may sound cruel, but I cannot access my son in a low frequency. I will never hear him. So I had to do the work I had to feel all through it all, even if when I didn't want to,
Yeah.
because I knew that if I kept any of it in my body, my energy, my emotions, any of it, that I wouldn't be able to reach my son. And that was my goal. Like my goal was, oh, I know this. I've had connection beyond, beyond the veil my entire life. I know I can access, these frequencies. I know I could receive this guidance. And so, but I knew I was going to have to work for it. And that is probably the hardest thing for people who are grieving, because it's like, well, damn, like, thanks for the insult to injury. Like, you don't think I've suffered enough? Now I got to do work. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, you have to, because it's the only way is through.
Yeah.
The only way is through. And if you and listen, the first couple years I navigated horribly.
Made a lot
Horribly.
of
I mean,
mistakes.
I was definitely all over the place. I was
Me too.
very distraction. It was a lot. It took a long time for me to be like, okay, I'm really ready to look at all this, feel it all, grab my people, put together my spiritual team, and be like, put myself in their hands and say, let's go. Like, I'm ready to face this. And it was not fun. Like, it's definitely a really hard thing to go through. But once you do, and you're on the other side, and you're like, you can experience joy without like that guilt creeping in, and then you feel like horrible, like how dare I smile and celebrate like they're not here.
Yeah.
You start realizing like they're very much here, and they're
Mhm.
very much experiencing all of this. They're just in the next room. You can't see them, but they're very much all around us all the time.
So, what were probably some of like the top 3 style type of tools, if there was anything, or if it was just going through it? I'm trying to think of something like, because you help people that are going through grief and you offer stuff. So what is some of this? Let's just maybe go about it that way. Like, what's some of the things that you offer in your programs to help individuals that may be going through something similar?
Yeah. And the biggest thing is to, whatever it is to keep it so simple, because the grief paralyzing effect is real. And
Mhm.
there's days you don't want to brush your teeth, you don't want to shower, you don't want to do anything. And so keeping it bite sized, and this is what I do with even my tools, keeping it like under 5 minutes, and it's a gentle shift. And a lot of it is really shifting your body,
Mhm.
because our body stores the trauma and we don't
Yeah.
even realize it. Our body stores the emotions and we don't even realize it. And once we start moving and shifting the energy and going, oh, that's there. Oh, that's like, we'll have all these pains and like illnesses, but it's grief literally trapped
Mhm.
in our bodies. And so a lot of it is little shifting of body movements. Body movements is huge. Somatic, like even just your mind, shifting your perspective, shifting how you look at something, how you perceive something. And it's little bite-sized activities, because somebody grieving has a really hard time doing little tasks, especially in the beginning. And if you overwhelm someone, they're not going to do anything. And so with that in mind, like even when I wrote my book, it's like people were like, I read it in 2 hours. That was the whole purpose.
Mm.
I would not give a grieving person a book that they look at like they're never going to pick it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it's one sentence that like sticks with them, because I have people that will message me and it's like 2 sentences that like stuck with them, that like, this is the 2 sentences that gave me all this hope,
Yeah.
And that was the whole goal, was a bite-sized 2 minutes, a bite-sized couple sentences, because those little perspective shifts along the way are what shift your whole perspective in the whole, to get to where I can stand and say, I'm okay, like I'm okay today.
Yeah.
Of course, I would love to, see what my 26-year-old Nico was doing running around this physical
Mhm.
earth. but I also know his whole oversoul and what he's doing in the whole universe. It's like two different things. And being a part of that is my perspective now. And so I can sit here and be like, well, that's cool. Like I'm good. You know, it's not like I'm not like I'm a mother too. Of course you miss your baby, but
Yeah.
that's not all that they are.
Right.
It's, you know what I mean? So those little perspective shifts, those little body shifts, those little bite-sized steps are how you get out here 9 years later or 5 years later or 4 years later. And also giving yourself grace, because it's going to look messy AF for a long time.
Yep. I know I made a lot of mistakes. At one point I said I should not be in charge of making decisions because I'm just messing it up. I'm making pretty bad mistakes, you know. So I commend you for getting where you are today, because I watched you grieve, and it wasn't pretty. It wasn't, like grief is not pretty at all. And I watched you go through it, and I'm very proud of you for where you are today, because losing a child, some people don't come out of that.
No, I know a lot of women that it's been, and I'm not saying this in any judgment in any way, but it's been 20 something years and they're still paralyzed.
Yeah.
I don't want to say still. I hate to even say still. Like, it's just the perspective is not there, and they're still very in that lost state, and it's hard to see your way out of that if you don't do the work. Unfortunately,
you have to do the work. You have to turn.
I know. I hate. It's like it's so hard because it's like, oh, I just want to hold people and But I'm like, no, you have to get up and help yourself, because even your own household doesn't understand what you're going through.
They don't.
And you're even navigating the bombs that are going off in your house because your husband doesn't understand. Your remaining kids don't understand. They're like, where's the mom we had before? Where's the wife we had before? She look around. You ain't ever gonna see her again.
You're never gonna see her again. You're forever different.
That person doesn't exist anymore. It's a whole new person.
And that's the thing too, is you have to grieve the loss of who you were before that.
Yeah. You do, because you won't ever be the same.
No, never. But I'm proud of you for where you are today, because you turned something tragic and horrible into something beautiful.
I appreciate you saying that. Yes, I'm sure. I definitely did it, and that's me. I do things very messy, and then I just keep going and get through it and go, okay, well, let's pivot. I just keep pivoting.
Yeah, okay. You have to
pick up the next thing and see how that works. Because the alternative wasn't an option for me.
No, and it's what good can come out of that,
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm still here, so as long as I'm here, let's rock.
And you still have to be here for you. You still have to be a mom. You still have to be a wife.
Yeah.
You still have to be an inspiration to other people.
No pressure.
Not at all.
And I truly believe with all of my soul that this was Nico and my intention before we came, and this is our work together. So I'm just fulfilling my ends of the bargain. I mean, it's hard to imagine we had hey, yeah, let's go there and do this, and then this is going to happen here, and this is going to happen there. What? Why would I agree to this?
Right. Isn't it
what?
crazy though? How you said that, Nico, kind of some of the things he said and some of the things that you thought. I mean, I did the same thing with my nephew. My nephew was sick too. He had a blood disorder too. And every time he would leave, I'd be with him and he would leave, I would stand at the end of the driveway and I would watch the car take him until I couldn't see him anymore. And I would hug him you never think it's going to be your last time, but I always, if I was upset with him, I always apologized. I always explained why. We talked about it, Every time he left, I hugged him, kissed him, told him I loved him, and I sat and I watched him. And sometimes, not even lying, sometimes I'd watch him and tears would come down my face because I knew, and his sickness isn't even why he died, and it's and it was so unexpected, and it was so just,
Yeah. It
it
it and it you know and it's tricky because people will, and even you, like, I don't want to say anything that would even trigger you. I was telling Jacqueline, like, I'm so mindful sometimes because my perspective is very different from a lot of people's, and I know,
yeah.
Amy, you and I do think a lot alike, so maybe, like,
Mhm.
I won't trigger you, but just, I truly honor, like, Nico's journey. I honor your nephew's journey. Like, I honor their journey so much and trust it so much that that's exactly how it was intended to be. That was
Right.
their intention. And so, people, oh, they were taken too soon, this and that. And I mean, yeah, I mean, people say all kinds of things, but I mean, at the end of the day, even Nico's disorder was like, people who die from that is like 1 in 15 million. Like, it was so rare that somebody would actually pass away from that.
Yeah.
His doctor was like, this never happens. Like, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's weird. Like you said, it's just he knew and I knew
Hmm.
weeks leading up to it.
My nephew even told my mom, I'm not going to live to see 25, and he died at 24.
Yeah.
So,
It's like you're,
Wow,
it's
I
like
had no
you're,
idea he said that.
yeah.
it's like your higher self somehow knows,
Yeah.
even if you can't fully remember. It's like, we know before we came, we know where we're going back to. And that's like what,
Mhm.
when you were cute, when you read that in my bio, I go around, the YOLO, but I added to it because I'm like, you only live this lifetime once.
Right.
Yeah. Which
Um,
I like that better than, because I don't
Mm.
think we live one time, but
yeah,
this lifetime, yes, for sure.
yeah, we only
100%.
live
Yeah.
this lifetime once. And so, I mean, I could go way down the woo woo
Yeah, me too.
of, like, I don't know that this was Nico and my first rodeo, but
Same. I think
yeah,
soulmates come in different forms, and
yeah,
I think you forever are bound to them, like, I think that other lives, other dimensions, other whatever you want to believe in, I think we are continuously side by side.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Eternity.
like this one movie, just because I feel like my soulmates are always in a dog. But like this one movie where this guy had this dog, and then, like, he just kept coming in different breed forms
Right.
throughout his time or
I think
whatever.
I heard about
And
that.
I
Yeah.
forget the name of it. Yeah, but it was so like, oh, like,
Yeah. I mean,
and I was like, I
I
wish the
believe that
dog
too.
could just talk to him and tell him it's me. you know?
Aw.
So you have a program, I think, that you're putting together. Your website is jennifercurryprasad.com, which the links are in the description. What is the Stand Store? What's that?
So the stand store is like the links of, like, how I help, like, the way I support people, or whether it's I have a free grief guide that someone can download if they've just lost somebody, for, like, navigating the first early days. And then I have a link to my book. I have a link to my grief toolkit, the 30-day toolkit. And I have links to my other businesses as well. It's easy to house it all in the stand store.
Okay, kind of like a link tree, kind of like
Yeah.
similar.
Mhm.
Okay. And then you have your book that you have on Amazon, which is amazing. And it is, can you tell us a little bit about the Dreamcatcher? Yes, a grieving mother's journey towards joy. Can you tell us, like, obviously your story is what inspired, I'm assuming, the book. And can you tell us a little bit about it?
So basically, I published the book in a way that you're almost like, I don't want to say voyeur because that sounds weird, but, like, I'm telling you the story as if, like, you're inside, like, me and Nico's story, like, from beginning to
Uh-huh.
end. And just kind of, it carries you through. I was a very young mom, and it carries you through, like, getting pregnant with him and just all of the things that we went through. Because, like, when he was born and I first saw him, I, like, looked at his eyes and I was like, are you sure, God? Like, are you sure I get this one? Because he looked at thousands and thousands of years old.
Mm.
And I was like, like, it literally stopped me in my breath. Like, okay, this is like, are you sure? Are you sure you're gonna let me take this one home? Because I just knew it was like looking at a wizard in his eyes. Like, I know that seems, I was like Merlin was in his eyes, and I was just like, okay, I'm terrified. Like, I'm this young, dumb, like, they're gonna let me take this wizard home.
Yeah.
And that's literally how I was thinking. And like, even like the moment of conception, like, I just knew I was pregnant with him. Like, it was like,
Yeah.
oh, hey, Nico. It was like he entered my body, and I was like, oh, hey, hey, Nicholas. And it's just, I don't know if that sounds creepy, but like, that's what happened, and that's how I felt. So I really wanted to tell our story as if like you were inside, like watching it all unfold, leading up to his hospitalization, leading up to, having to remove him from life support, and kind of just the shift after of, me going on that journey to recover my joy, and kind of letting people know that this is possible. You can navigate grief alongside joy. You're still worthy, you're still here, you're still living, and you still have work to do, because if you didn't, like, you wouldn't have woke up today.
Yeah.
So really, just that's the perspective, and the the intention of the book. I truly believe that so many atrocities and so many things that are happening in our world today is because of fear. Everyone's so afraid of everything, and everyone's afraid of all different things, but people are committing and doing harm to so many people in the name of, because they're afraid.
Yeah.
They're reacting in horrible ways. They're wanting to force people to do this or not force people to do that, or be in control and in charge of everybody, because it's so fear based led. But I think because the whole collective is so scared of physical death, because it's such a taboo subject, and people just like can't even go, well, what happens now, what happens after, and so it's just a lot of fear, and a lot of fear is just taking the whole like collective down to this vibration that we don't need to be in. Like, we need to come
Yeah.
back up and reduce these fears. And I feel like if we can shift our fear around physical death, like, that would just be like all of us,
Yeah.
and so that's really my intention with sharing our story, sharing the book. And that's why I say, Nico's working there. He's kind of guiding me, and I'm kind of doing the physical steps.
Okay. I had shared like one of the things I like to say, and this is I have to remind myself of this too, is that I can live in fear or faith, but I can't live in both. And so I'm going to ask you a question in regards to like gratitude, because I think that's, but I just wanted to read 2 reviews that someone said on Amazon. And
Yep.
so Tracy B said, there's hope even when the worst of that happens. A mother's beautiful story about love, life, and grief. A reminder that in every worst wreckage imaginable, you can pick through the pieces and rise again. And then the other one was, this book clearly outlined a mother's love and helpless feeling for her sick child. I felt sad for her loss and joy for the love she has for her beautiful boy. Jennifer, thank you for sharing your story. May the Lord bless you with peace. I thought that was very sweet.
Yeah, that's really sweet.
You have all 5-star reviews, by the way, in your book on Amazon. So, and more than one, and it doesn't look like it was by people. A couple do, but by people that you know. So that we're sharing, just which those are the best, right?
Yes, I always get so excited because I'll like look at my back, and I'm like, people from Canada about my book, people from the UK about my book. I'm like,
It's
I'm
like
like, oh
great.
my gosh, that's because I set an intention last October for the book to go worldwide, like worldwide, not just here in the US. And so I got invited to like 3 different bookstores to display the book, like in the UK and Germany. And I was like, okay, Nico, keep going. But yeah, so it's so nice to read stuff like that. And sometimes people will call me, or people will find me on Facebook that I didn't even know. Like, I needed a whole box of tissues for that, but the ending, oh my God, the joy in the ending. And I'm like, yep, thank you. I'm so glad you shared that with me, because
Yeah.
that was the intention. I wanted to, yes, it was so sad. Yes, we cried our eyes out, but then we were left with hope and joy, and
Yeah.
and a hopeful future.
Yeah. That's beautiful. So now that this is like your second part at life, or third or fourth, whichever, um and you seem like a woman of intention, right, and thankfulness and gratitude. So I asked this on Facebook earlier today. Since we're friends on there, you should have read it. If you didn't, shame on you. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Do you have like a gratitude or a thankful statement that you say every morning when you wake up? And if so, what is it?
Okay, so I two things, because I love gratitude, but I do, and because I'm such an energy person, I feel like there's some resistance in gratitude,
Mm.
as in like I'm grateful, but I now owe you. So I like to say appreciation, because then there's no resistance and there's no ties. And I just appreciate, and whatever's reciprocating is happening, and there's no, I owe you. You know how when someone does something for you and you're like, oh, I feel obligated to like give back, do something back. I feel like appreciation kind of like deletes all that. And it's just high, like flying high up here with love. So that's my first thing, is that I swap out appreciation over, like, I
Okay.
always say yeah. But every morning I wake up and I say, God, you know me better than anybody. You know my heart, you know my soul, you know my intention, you know who I'm meant to help. You know who needs my help. Please place them in my way, give me the words to say, and show me how I can help them. And that's like my thing that I say every single day.
That's beautiful. And then you have to step aside and watch out, because he'll send them.
Yep. And then I just
Get
go,
ready.
and then I just take my hands off the wheel.
Yeah.
It's not. I always say it's not our job to know how. We just have to set the intention and get in line with it. We don't know how anything is going to happen. Like, ooh, the divine synchronicity works in some mysterious ways.
Yes.
I
Yes.
never thought a box of shampoo was going to be my life raft to get me out of that dark, deep hole. So, we're planning, and source is like,
Yeah.
oh no, it's going to be this way.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the banking career that you built, you went on to building a nice residual revenue through other income sources, which is amazing. So
Yeah,
congratulations
yeah.
on that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I loved my banking career. My favorite part of banking was my customers and my branches. I
Yeah.
just didn't love the hours, and I didn't love the bosses anymore, the owners.
Yeah.
It was like those were the two things I was like, I would like to change these out, but I love my customers and I love my
Yeah.
branches. So I'm so grateful that the work I get to do now, I feel like my customers are like my banking customers, except now they just
Yeah.
buy my products. And then my business partners are like my branches.
Yeah.
And instead of sending out wires for them, I help them build their business. So
Yeah.
it is, it's, I always just laugh because it's Nico. Like Nico's like, no, you're gonna do this. But
Yeah.
how it just kind of fit. And then I don't know how I pulled it off, but
That's amazing.
I did.
Okay, we're about to wrap up. Amy, is there any last thing that you'd like to share or say, or?
No, I'm just happy to see you, Jen.
I know, I'm so happy to see you too. I miss you. I love you, my mermaid
I know,
girl.
I love you too. We got to go earthing one day.
Yes. Yes. Let's go earthing on Deerfield Beach. Like me
Let's
and
do it.
Aaliyah and I still do that, believe
Do
it or
you?
not. Yeah, from time to time we still do. It was just we went last time and it was so hot. We literally couldn't walk from the water back to the shore on the sand. We were like running and then having to sit and pick our feet up.
Yeah.
It was so hot. So I said, we need to wait until it gets a little cooler
Little
out.
cooler.
Then we'll start back up, and you definitely
Hey,
need to
I'm
come with
about it.
us.
Give me a call.
Yeah, I would love to see you and squeeze you.
I know.
Thank you
Okay.
so much, ladies, for
Yes.
having me. I'm so
Yes.
happy that I was able to be here.
If someone wanted to get in contact with, it's a stan.com, right? Stan. What's
It's
the best
probably,
platform? Yeah.
honestly, I feel like Facebook Messenger is probably the easiest way. Like if someone wanted to send me a message, or on
Okay.
Instagram, but yeah, because really on Stan Store, there's not like you could send an email on my website and I would get the email, but like Messenger is usually how people find me.
Okay.
Strangers, all kinds of people find me from there. So that's probably the easiest way.
Okay. All right, cool. Jennifer, thank you so much. I'm just going to put you guys backstage for a second, and then I'll be right back. Okay, hold on. All right. Okay. Everyone, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. We just want to say thank you. But we also have our 18-month planner. We are doing a 1-hour mastermind with the planner. So if you go to yourloveplanner.com, it will take you directly to our landing page that will allow you to sign up for the planner and the mastermind. If you don't really care about the mastermind or whatever, then you can just don't worry about that. You can still get the planner, but it's all the same price. Thank you guys, everybody, for coming on today. We really appreciate it. This is another episode of You Are Loved, and I hope you have an amazing day.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of You Are Loved. If you have any topic ideas or would like to be a guest on the show, please hit us up on Instagram at youareloved.store.